Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty as it moved through the dark space near the Kepler Nebula. The ship was on a routine mission to map new star systems and look for planets that might support life. Jake had been captain for 3 years now and loved the quiet moments between discoveries, when his crew could rest and the ship could sail peacefully through the stars. The Liberty was not the biggest ship in Earth's fleet, but it was fast and had the best crew Jake could ask for. 200 brave men and women had volunteered for this deep space mission that would keep them away from Earth for 2 years. Most of them were young and eager to see what lay beyond the known worlds. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez was working at her station when the communication system started making strange sounds. She looked up from her screen with a puzzled expression and called out to Jake, "Captain, we are getting something weird here. It looks like a signal, but I have never seen anything like this before." Jake walked over to Amy's station and looked at the display. The screen showed wave patterns that moved in ways that seemed almost like music, but with mathematical precision that no human signal ever had. "Can you tell where it is coming from, Amy?" "Yes, sir, it is coming from about 6 light hours away near that cluster of dead stars. The signal is strong, but it keeps repeating the same pattern, over and over again, like someone is trying to send the same message, Dr. Peter." Kim heard the conversation from his science station and came over to look at the data. Peter was the ship's expert on alien life and had studied every known signal from space for the past 10 years. He adjusted his glasses and stared at the screen for several minutes before speaking. "Captain, this is definitely not natural. See how the patterns change in response to our position? Whatever is sending this signal knows we are here and is trying to communicate with us. The mathematical structure suggests a highly advanced civilization." Jake felt his heart beat faster. First contact with alien life was what every explorer dreamed of, but it was also dangerous. Earth Command had strict rules about how to handle such situations. "Amy, can you decode any of it?" Amy worked at her keyboard for several minutes while the bridge crew watched in silence. The patterns on the screen slowly began to change and form shapes that looked almost like pictures. "I think I am getting something, sir. The signal seems to be showing us images of ships in some kind of danger." Dr. Kim pointed at one of the images that showed several large objects surrounded by swirling energy. "Captain, I believe this is a distress call. Those shapes look like spacecraft and they appear to be trapped in some kind of gravitational field." Commander Lisa Grant joined the group around Amy's station. Lisa was Jake's second in command and always worried about following proper procedures. "Captain, if this really is first contact, we should report back to Earth Command immediately. We are not equipped to handle a situation like this on our own." Jake looked at the images on the screen again. If Dr. Kim was right, then somewhere in space there were intelligent beings who needed help. He thought about how long it would take to send a message back to Earth and wait for instructions. By then it might be too late. "Amy, how long would it take us to reach the source of this signal?" "About 18 hours at maximum speed, Captain." Jake made his decision. "Set course for the signal source." Lisa sent a message back to Earth Command telling them what we have found, but we are not waiting for their response. "If there are people out there who need help, we are going to help them." Lisa looked worried but nodded. "Yes, sir, I will prepare the message right away." As the Liberty changed course and increased speed, Jake felt the excitement of his crew. This was why they had all volunteered for deep space exploration. The chance to discover something new and maybe make history. Dr. Kim continued working on the signal, and after a few hours he called Jake back to his station. "Captain, I have been able to decode more of the message. The beings who sent this call themselves the Zephyrians, and they are a peaceful trading species. They have been trapped for over 6 months in what they describe as a gravity well created by a collapsed star." "How many ships, Lisa?" "The signal indicates 12 vessels, Captain. Each one appears to be quite large, possibly carrying thousands of crew members." Jake walked to the front of the bridge and looked out at the stars ahead. Somewhere out there, an entire fleet of alien beings was slowly being pulled toward death unless someone could help them. Earth Command would probably order them to observe from a safe distance and wait for a properly equipped rescue fleet. But Jake knew that by the time such a fleet could be organized and sent, it would be too late. The Liberty might not be the biggest or strongest ship, but it had something that bureaucrats back on Earth did not have. It was here now when help was needed. "All hands, this is the captain. We are about to make first contact with an alien species that needs our help. I want everyone to remember that we represent not just Earth, but all of humanity. Whatever we do here today will be remembered for generations. Make sure we make them proud. Amy looked up from her station with a smile. Captain, the Zephyrians are responding to our course change. The signal is getting stronger, and I think I can see gratitude in the mathematical patterns. Jake nodded and returned to his captain's chair. In 18 hours, they would reach the trapped alien fleet and find out if humans were ready to take their place among the stars as heroes, rather than conquerors. The USS Liberty raced through space toward an encounter that would change everything. The USS Liberty dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and Jake Morrison felt his breath catch in his throat. Before them stretched a sight that no human had ever seen. 12 enormous alien ships hung in space like frozen crystal sculptures, each one nearly twice the size of the Liberty. The vessels seemed to glow with their own soft blue light, and their surfaces were smooth and curved, like works of art rather than machines of war. But the beautiful ships were clearly in trouble. They were all being slowly pulled toward a massive dark object that bent space around it like a funnel. Chief Engineer Carlos Martinez checked his instruments and shook his head in amazement. Captain, that thing is not just a collapsed star. It is some kind of artificial wormhole that is creating a gravity well strong enough to trap those ships. The energy readings are off the charts. Amy Rodriguez was already working to establish contact with the alien fleet, her screen filled with complex patterns of light and sound that seemed to respond to her attempts at communication. Captain, I think they know we are here. The lead ship is sending us some kind of greeting. Dr. Peter Kim moved to a secondary console and began analyzing the alien transmissions. After several minutes of intense work, he looked up with excitement. Captain, I am beginning to understand their communication system. They use a combination of mathematics and visual patterns that is actually quite elegant. Give me a few more minutes and I think I can establish real communication. Jake watched as the alien ships continued their slow drift toward the dark wormhole. Even without understanding their language, he could sense their desperation. Navigator Ben Thompson calculated that the ships had maybe 72 hours before they would be pulled past the point of no return. Dr. Kim, work as fast as you can. Carlos, I want you to scan those ships and see if you can figure out how their engines work. Maybe we can find a way to help them break free. The main screen suddenly flickered and filled with an image that made everyone on the bridge stop and stare. A tall, graceful being appeared before them with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. The creature wore robes that seemed to shimmer with the same light as their ships and moved with fluid motions that were both alien and strangely beautiful. Dr. Kim worked frantically at his console, and after a few moments the alien's words became understandable through the ship's translation system. Greetings, beings of the small vessel. I am Admiral Kaithara of the Zephyrian Trade Fleet. We have been trapped in this gravity anomaly for many of your time cycles, and our situation grows more desperate with each passing moment. Jake stepped forward and faced the screen. Admiral Kaithara, I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Liberty. We received your distress signal and came to help. Can you tell us how you became trapped? The alien admiral seemed surprised by Jake's direct offer of assistance. You would help us even though we are strangers to your species? This is most unusual, Captain Morrison. We were exploring new hyperspace routes when we encountered this artificial gravity well. Our ships became caught and we have been unable to escape despite our best efforts. Commander Lisa Grant whispered to Jake. Captain, we should be very careful about what we promise. We do not know if we can actually help them, and we might make the situation worse. But Jake had already made up his mind. Admiral Kaithara, we will do everything we can to help you escape this trap. Can you share your technical data with us so our engineers can study the problem? Over the next several hours, the Liberty's crew worked closely with the Zephyrian technicians to understand the situation. Carlos Martinez was amazed by the alien technology, which was far more advanced than anything humans had built. The Zephyrian ships used some kind of crystal matrix for power in their engines, worked by manipulating space-time itself. Dr. Kim learned that the Zephyrians were a peaceful species that had been traveling among the stars for thousands of years. They were traders and explorers who valued art and science above all else. They had never encountered a species quite like humans who were so young in space travel, but so eager to help complete strangers. Captain Morrison, your species fascinates us. Most civilizations we encounter are either too primitive to help or too advanced to care. But humans seem to have something special. You are willing to risk your own safety for beings you have never met. Jake smiled at the alien admiral. Admiral, that is just what humans do. We help each other and we help anyone else who needs it. That is how we have survived and grown as a species. But the warm feelings were interrupted by an urgent warning from Ben Thompson at the navigation station. "Captain, the gravity field is getting stronger. Those ships are being pulled in faster than we calculated. They have maybe 48 hours now, not 72. The Zephyrian admiral's expression grew more worried. "Captain Morrison, I fear that time is running out for my people. We have tried everything we know to escape, but our technology is not designed for this kind of gravitational anomaly." Carlos Martinez looked up from his engineering console with a thoughtful expression. "Captain, I have an idea, but it is very dangerous. Our quantum drive creates a small controlled implosion when we jump to faster than light speed. If we could create a much larger implosion at exactly the right point in the gravity field, we might be able to disrupt the wormhole enough for the Zephyrian ships to escape." Dr. Kim nodded slowly. "The theory is sound, but the timing would have to be perfect. And the Liberty would have to get very close to the wormhole to make it work." Jake looked at his crew and saw determination in their faces. These were the people who had volunteered to explore the unknown, and they were not going to back down when aliens needed their help. "Admiral Kythara, are you willing to work with us to attempt a rescue? It will be dangerous for all of us, but it might be your only chance." The alien admiral was quiet for a long moment before responding. "Captain Morrison, your courage honors us. Yes, we will work with you to attempt this rescue. If we fail, at least we will fail trying to save ourselves rather than simply waiting for death." Jake nodded and turned to his crew. "All right, people, we have work to do. Carlos, start planning the technical details with the Zephyrian engineers. Amy, maintain constant communication with all 12 ships. Lisa, prepare the crew for emergency procedures. We are going to save these people or die trying." Dr. Helen Rodriguez had not slept in 24 hours, but her eyes were bright with excitement as she worked on the rescue plan. As the Liberty's chief physicist, she understood the quantum drive better than anyone else on the ship, and she knew that what they were attempting had never been tried before. "Captain, the mathematics are incredibly complex, but I think we can make this work. We need to create a controlled quantum explosion at precisely the right point in the wormhole structure. The blast will destabilize the artificial gravity field long enough for the Zephyrian ships to escape." Jake studied the holographic display that showed the gravity well in the trapped alien vessels. "How close do we need to get Helen?" "Very close, sir. The Liberty will need to be within 5,000 kilometers of the wormhole when we detonate the quantum charge. At that distance, the gravitational forces will be trying to tear us apart." Carlos Martinez looked up from his engineering station where he had been working with Zephyrian technicians through the communication link. "Captain, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that the Zephyrian ships can amplify our quantum pulse if we coordinate the timing perfectly. The bad news is that we will only get one chance at this." Mechanic Tony Johnson had an idea that surprised everyone. Tony was not an officer, but he was one of the smartest people on the ship when it came to practical engineering problems. "Captain, what if we use the Zephyrian ships themselves as part of the explosion? Their crystal power matrices might be exactly what we need to create a bigger blast." Dr. Kim translated Tony's idea to Admiral Kythara, and the alien leader was intrigued. "Your mechanic has a creative mind, Captain Morrison. Our ships could indeed contribute their power to the quantum pulse, but it would mean risking all 12 vessels at once." Jake was about to respond when security Chief Maria Santos called out from her station with alarm in her voice. "Captain, I am detecting something strange in the sensor readings from the wormhole. This gravity field is not completely natural. There are artificial components built into the structure." Helen Rodriguez quickly analyzed Maria's data, and her face went pale. "Captain, Maria is right. This is not just a collapsed star that created a wormhole. Someone built this thing deliberately. It is a trap designed to catch ships that travel through this region of space." The implications hit everyone on the bridge at the same time. If the wormhole was artificial, then whoever built it might still be around. Jake felt a chill run down his spine as he realized they might not be alone in this region of space. Maria scanned the area for any other ships. If this is a trap, then the hunters might be nearby waiting to collect their prey. For several tense minutes, Maria worked at her sensors while the rest of the crew watched nervously. The Zephyrian ships continued their slow drift toward the wormhole, and time was running out. "Fast, Captain, I am not detecting any ships in the immediate area, but there are some strange energy signatures at the edge of our sensor range. Whatever is out there is trying very hard not to be seen." Admiral Kythara appeared on the main screen again with new urgency in his voice. "Captain Morrison, we have detected the same energy signatures. They belong to a species we know as the Destructors. They are a warlike race that builds these gravity traps to capture trading vessels like ours. They harvest the ships and crews for resources and slaves. Jake felt anger burning in his chest. The idea of anyone using such a cruel trap to capture peaceful traders was disgusting to him. But it also meant that their rescue mission had become much more dangerous. Admiral, how long do we have before these destructors arrive? Unknown, Captain. They usually wait until trapped ships are almost at the point of no return, before they move in to collect them. But your arrival may have changed their timeline. Carlos Martinez interrupted with more technical details. Captain, if we are going to attempt the rescue, we need to start positioning the ships now. The Zephyrian vessels need to form a precise geometric pattern around the wormhole, and we need to begin charging our quantum drive. Jake made the decision that would determine the fate of everyone involved. All right, we are going ahead with the rescue attempt. Maria, keep scanning for destructor ships. Helen, begin the quantum drive charging sequence. Carlos, coordinate with the Zephyrian engineers to position their ships. Over the next 6 hours, the rescue operation began to take shape. The 12 Zephyrian ships slowly moved into a complex formation around the wormhole, with each vessel taking a specific position calculated to maximize the effect of the quantum pulse. Pilot Danny Walsh launched shuttlecraft to help evacuate non-essential Zephyrian personnel to safer positions on the outer ships. Danny was amazed by his first sight of the aliens in person. They were tall and graceful with an inner calm that seemed to come from centuries of peaceful exploration. Medical officer Dr. Susan Clark worked with Zephyrian healers to treat crew members who were suffering from the effects of the intense gravitational fields. She discovered that despite their alien appearance, the Zephyrians had similar biological needs to humans, and their medical knowledge was incredibly advanced. But as the rescue preparations continued, Maria Santos detected the energy signatures getting stronger. Captain, whatever is out there is moving closer. I estimate we have maybe 6 hours before they arrive. Jake looked at the tactical display and saw that they were running out of time. The quantum drive needed at least 4 more hours to reach full charge, and the Zephyrian ships were still moving into position. Helen, can we speed up the charging process? Not without risking a catastrophic failure, Captain. If the quantum matrix destabilizes while we are this close to the wormhole, it could destroy both our ship and the Zephyrian fleet. Admiral Kaithara spoke from the main screen with calm acceptance. Captain Morrison, if the destructors arrive before we can escape, then you must save your own ship and crew. We are grateful for your attempt to help us, but we will not be responsible for human deaths. Jake turned to face the alien admiral with determination in his eyes. Admiral, we are not leaving anyone behind. If those destructor ships want to capture your people, they will have to go through us. First, Commander Lisa Grant looked worried about Jake's promise, but she knew her captain well enough to understand that he meant every word. The Liberty might be outgunned by alien warships, but the human crew would fight to protect their new friends. As the hours passed, the tension on the bridge grew stronger. The quantum drive slowly charged while the Zephyrian ships moved into their final positions. In the distance, the energy signatures of the approaching destructor vessels grew steadily brighter. With 2 hours left before the quantum pulse could be fired, Maria Santos detected 3 large objects dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Captain, the destructors have arrived. 3 warships, each one bigger than a Zephyrian vessel. They are moving toward us at high speed. The 3 destructor warships were massive dark vessels that looked like they were built for one purpose only. Their hulls were covered with weapon ports and armor plating that made them look like floating fortresses. As they approached the trapped Zephyrian fleet, Jake could see that each destructor ship was at least 3 times the size of the Liberty. Captain, they are hailing us. Amy Rodriguez called out from her communication station. Put them on screen, Amy. The image that appeared on the main display made several crew members step backward in shock. The destructor commander was a huge reptilian creature with red eyes and scales that looked like black metal. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding stone. Small vessel, you will withdraw immediately from this area. The trapped ships belong to us by right of capture. Any interference will result in your destruction. Jake stepped forward and faced the alien commander with no fear showing on his face. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Liberty. These ships contain living beings who need help, and we are going to provide that help. You can either leave peacefully or we can settle this the hard way. The destructor commander seemed amused by Jake's defiance. Your tiny ship against 3 of our warships? You humans must be even more foolish than we were told. You have one of your time units to withdraw before we open fire." The transmission ended and Jake turned to his crew. Everyone on the bridge was looking at him with expressions that mixed fear and determination. They all knew the odds were hopeless, but none of them suggested retreat. "Carlos, how much longer do we need for the quantum pulse?" 2 hours and 30 minutes, Captain. The charge is building, but we cannot rush it." Commander Lisa Grant took her position at the tactical station. "Captain, the destructor ships are armed with some kind of plasma cannons and they have launched fighter craft. I count at least 50 small attack ships heading our way." Jake sat down in his captain's chair and activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. We are about to engage 3 enemy warships in order to protect our new Zephyrian friends. I know the odds look bad, but I have faith in this crew and this ship. Battle stations, everyone, and remember, we fight for more than just ourselves today. The Liberty was not designed as a warship, but it had defensive weapons and shields that were better than most exploration vessels." As the destructor fighters approached, Lisa Grant coordinated the ship's laser batteries to create a defensive screen around the Zephyrian fleet. Pilot Danny Walsh launched the Liberty's small squadron of shuttlecraft to help fight off the enemy fighters. Danny had trained as a combat pilot before joining the exploration service, and his skills quickly became apparent as he led the human shuttles in a series of hit-and-run attacks against the much larger destructor force. The space around the wormhole erupted into a deadly light show as energy weapons fired in all directions. The Liberty shook under the impact of plasma bolts, but her shields held firm. Jake was amazed to see that several of the Zephyrian ships were also fighting back, despite being trapped in the gravity well. "Captain, the Zephyrian vessels are using some kind of energy beam weapons," Maria Santos reported from her station. "They are not very powerful, but they are helping to drive off the fighter craft." Admiral Kythera appeared on the communication screen with battle damage visible behind him. "Captain Morrison, we cannot contribute much to the fight while trapped in this gravity field, but we will do what we can to help defend your ship." Jake nodded his thanks and turned his attention back to the battle. The 3 large destructor warships were closing in, and their plasma cannons were much more dangerous than the fighter craft. When the first full barrage hit the Liberty, the entire ship shook like it was going to tear apart. "Shields down to 60%, Captain," Carlos Martinez called out as sparks flew from damaged control panels around the bridge. Dr. Helen Rodriguez was still working frantically to charge the quantum drive while the battle raged around them. "Captain, I need 90 more minutes, but I do not think the ship can take that much punishment." Jake made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. "Lisa, prepare to ram the lead destructor ship. If we cannot outfight them, maybe we can give them something to think about." "Captain, that would be suicide," Lisa protested. "Maybe, but it might also give us the time we need to complete the quantum pulse. Besides, I would rather go down fighting than just sit here and get blown apart." The Liberty turned toward the largest destructor warship and began accelerating at maximum speed. The enemy commander seemed confused by the suicidal attack and hesitated for a crucial few seconds before ordering his guns to focus fire on the approaching human ship. But Jake was not really planning to sacrifice his ship and crew. At the last moment, he ordered a hard turn that brought the Liberty around behind the destructor warship, where its heavy guns could not track them. The human ship's smaller weapons hammered at the enemy's engine section, causing significant damage. The destructor fleet was now in complete chaos as they tried to deal with the unpredictable human tactics. Jake used the confusion to position the Liberty close to the wormhole where the quantum pulse would be most effective. "Helen, how much longer?" 30 minutes, Captain, but the quantum matrix is becoming unstable because of the battle damage. I am not sure we can maintain the charge much longer." The situation was becoming desperate when Tony Johnson came up with another one of his practical solutions. "Captain, what if we use the battle damage to our advantage? If we let the quantum matrix become slightly unstable, it might create a bigger explosion." Dr. Rodriguez looked horrified by the suggestion. "Tony, that could destroy us along with everything else in this region of space. Or it could create exactly the kind of blast we need to collapse this artificial wormhole permanently," Tony replied. Jake looked at the tactical display and saw that the destructor ships were regrouping for a final attack. The Liberty's shields were failing, and several of the Zephyrian vessels had taken heavy damage. In a few more minutes, the enemy would overwhelm their defenses and capture everyone. Helen prepared to release the quantum pulse with an unstable matrix. Tony, get down to engineering and help Carlos prepare the ship for what might be our last action. Admiral Kythara spoke from the communication screen with admiration in his voice. Captain Morrison, your species amazes us. You are willing to sacrifice yourselves to save people you barely know. This is true courage. Jake smiled grimly as the final countdown began. Admiral, that is what friends do for each other. Hold on, everyone, this is going to be rough. The 3 destructor warships lined up for their final attack run, just as Helen Rodriguez announced that the quantum pulse was ready to fire. Jake could see plasma cannons charging up on all 3 enemy vessels, and knew that the next barrage would destroy the Liberty. Fire the pulse, Helen. All hands brace for impact. The quantum pulse erupted from the USS Liberty like a miniature star being born. The unstable matrix that Tony Johnson had suggested created an explosion far more powerful than anyone had calculated. Space itself seemed to bend and twist as the energy wave expanded outward from the human ship toward the artificial wormhole. Jake Morrison felt the Liberty shake violently as the pulse discharged, and for a moment he thought the ship was going to tear itself apart. Every light on the bridge flickered and went out, leaving them in darkness, except for the brilliant glow of the quantum explosion outside. When the emergency lighting came back on a few seconds later, Jake could see his crew picking themselves up from the floor and checking their instruments. Carlos Martinez was the first to speak, and his voice was filled with amazement. Captain, the wormhole is collapsing. The artificial gravity field is destabilizing and the Zephyrian ships are breaking free. On the main screen, they could see the 12 alien vessels moving away from the dying wormhole under their own power. The beautiful crystal ships were damaged but intact, and their crews were safe. But something else was happening that no one had expected. The quantum explosion had caught the 3 destructor warships in its expanding wave of energy. The massive enemy vessels were being pulled into the collapsing wormhole despite their desperate attempts to escape. Their plasma cannons fired uselessly at the walls of twisted space-time that were dragging them toward destruction. Captain, the destructor ships are trapped in their own gravity well. Maria Santos reported with satisfaction in her voice. They are being pulled into the wormhole just like the Zephyrians were. But Jake had no time to celebrate because the Liberty was also being affected by the quantum explosion. The ship was spinning out of control and all of its systems were failing one by one. Through the chaos, he could hear his crew calling out damage reports from every section of the ship. Hull breach on Deck 7. Life support failing in engineering. Navigation systems are completely dead, Captain. Jake held onto his chair as the ship tumbled through space. Around them, the wormhole continued to collapse in a spectacular display of energy that lit up the entire region. The destructor warships disappeared into the twisting vortex of space-time, along with their cruel trap that had captured so many innocent travelers. Then something impossible happened. Instead of being destroyed by the quantum explosion, the Liberty suddenly found itself surrounded by a bubble of calm energy. The spinning stopped and the ship's systems began to come back online one by one. Amy Rodriguez looked at her communication station in wonder. Captain, I'm receiving a signal from the Zephyrian fleet. They are using some kind of stabilizing field to protect us from the quantum effects, Admiral. Kythara appeared on the main screen and Jake could see that the alien leader was smiling with an expression of deep gratitude. Captain Morrison, your sacrifice has saved not only our fleet but also eliminated a threat that has plagued this region of space for many years. We owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Jake looked around at his crew and saw that they were all alive despite the incredible forces they had just survived. The Liberty was badly damaged, but she was still flying and her people were safe. Admiral, we did what anyone would do when friends are in trouble. I am just glad that everyone made it through. The Zephyrian ships formed a protective formation around the Liberty and began using their advanced technology to help repair the damage from the battle. Jake watched in amazement as alien engineering teams worked alongside his own crew to restore the human ship to full functionality. Dr. Peter Kim spent hours talking with Zephyrian scientists and learned that their species had been exploring the galaxy for over 10,000 years. They had encountered hundreds of different civilizations but had never met any quite like humans. Captain Morrison, your species is unique in our experience. Most young civilizations are either too aggressive or too cautious to take the risks that you took today. Humans seem to have found a balance between courage and wisdom that is very rare. Over the following days, the Liberty traveled with the Zephyrian fleet toward their home system. Jake and his crew were amazed by the alien technology and culture. The Zephyrians shared their knowledge freely, and seemed genuinely interested in learning about human society as well. When they reached the Zephyrian homeworld, Jake could hardly believe what he was seeing. The planet was covered with crystal cities that sparkled in the light of twin suns. Floating platforms moved through the sky carrying goods and people, while the surface was covered with gardens and parks that stretched as far as the eye could see. Thousands of Zephyrian ships filled the space around the planet, and they were all sending messages of welcome to the small human vessel. Admiral Kythara had sent word ahead about the rescue, and the story had spread throughout Zephyrian society. Captain Morrison, you and your crew are the first humans to visit our world, but you will not be the last. The Zephyrian Council has voted unanimously to invite your species to join the Galactic Peaceful Alliance. Jake had heard of the alliance during his conversations with Dr. Kim. It was a confederation of over 50 species that worked together to explore the galaxy and protect peaceful civilizations from threats like the Destructors. Admiral, I'm honored by your invitation, but I am just one ship captain. This decision would have to be made by the leaders of Earth. Of course, Captain, but we believe your actions here have already proven that humanity is ready to take its place among the civilized species of the galaxy. The formal ceremonies that followed were unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. The Zephyrians presented him and his crew with the Crystal Star of Valor, which was their highest honor for courage in the face of danger. Jake was told that no alien species had ever received this award before. In return, Jake presented Admiral Kythara with a small Earth flag that had been in his family for generations. The simple piece of cloth might not have looked like much compared to Zephyrian crystal technology, but the alien leader treasured it as a symbol of the friendship between their species. When it came time for the Liberty to return to Earth, the ship's cargo holds were filled with gifts from the Zephyrian people, medical technology that could cure diseases humans had never been able to treat, star charts showing safe routes to distant worlds, and most importantly, communication devices that would allow Earth to stay in contact with their new friends. As the Liberty departed from the Zephyrian system, Jake looked back at the crystal cities one last time. His crew had come out here looking for new worlds, and instead they had found something much more valuable. They had found proof that the galaxy was full of good people who valued courage and friendship above all else. The trip back to Earth took several months, but the time passed quickly as the crew worked to prepare their reports and analyze everything they had learned. When Earth finally appeared on their screens, Jake felt a mixture of joy and sadness. He was happy to be home, but he knew that this was really just the beginning of humanity's journey to the stars. The story of the Liberty and her crew spread across Earth like wildfire. The rescue of the Zephyrian fleet became legendary and inspired a new generation of young people to join the space service. Within 5 years, Earth had built its first fleet of true starships and established permanent bases in a dozen star systems. Jake Morrison was promoted to admiral and put in charge of Earth's first diplomatic mission to the Galactic Peaceful Alliance. The Liberty was repaired and upgraded with both human and Zephyrian technology, making her one of the fastest ships in known space years. Later, when historians wrote about humanity's first steps into galactic civilization, they always began with the story of a small exploration ship that risked everything to save a fleet of strangers. The rescue mission proved that humans had something special to offer the galaxy, and that courage and friendship could overcome any obstacle.